notifying John Deere right now. If you do that, we're putting a 200% tariff on everything that you want to sell into the United States, so that if I win, John Deere is going to be paying a 200%. They haven't started it yet. Maybe they haven't even made the final decision yet.
This is my John Deere La105 that I got earlier this summer. I've been working on this unit off and on, and I think I'm at least in the home stretches of getting to use this machine. I was fortunate enough to only have paid $50 for this mower. This mower is from 2009 and it has around 179 hours on it. Just an amazing find for the price. I'm blown away by how great of a shape it's in. Obviously it was kept indoors. I look forward to getting this machine back in 100% working order. Hello everyone, I'm Big Al Cox. Welcome to my shop where I look at and work on and attempt to fix various small engine and power equipment. So far I have brought back the dead 4-year-old battery that was in this unit, and it seems to be holding a charge. I've done a tune-up, changing the oil filter, fuel filter, and blowing out the fuel lines. I've also changed the spark plug and the air filter, and I've changed a burnt headlight bulb. I've greased the steering. I've checked the air pressure in the tires and adjusted the brakes. And I have links to part 1 and part 2 of this video in the description if you'd like to check those out. The deck on this unit engages with a manual cable system. This deck has a 2-blade 42-inch cut. With that 19.5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton and sharp blades, this mower should be a great time-saving cutter. I already know the deck engages and runs, but I have not looked underneath at the condition of the blades. I don't see any rust through on the top yet. There's a lot of debris on top, of course. I blew this deck off in the first video, but I've tested it a few times and it's been sitting around collecting whatever the winds blew back onto the deck there, and the moisture and all of that. Sounds like a good excuse anyway. The actual drive belt looks okay. There's life left in it anyway, I think. Another thing I don't have to buy, hopefully. It keeps getting better with this unit. Well, let me go get the deck out from underneath and see what we're dealing with here. I'm dropping the deck height adjustment control down to the very lowest setting. That will allow me enough room to release the engagement control cable from the deck. I'm going to use this hook from my Harbor Freight hook set here to aid me in pulling the cotter pin that holds the engagement cable in place on the mount. Once I have this cotter pin pulled, the control cable will lift out of this holder. Then this idle pulley spring needs to be disconnected. Next, I'm going to use bricks to go under my deck for support while I disconnect the draft bars and front draft arm and drive belt. On both sides of the tractor, to release the rear draft arm, I will pull the cotter pin and remove the washer behind it. Same on the rear with the adjustable lift link. Remove the washer and cotter pin. Then the adjustable lift link pulls off the mount. That'll be the same for both the left and right sides. Next, I will remove the front draft arm by pulling this version of the cotter pin. Then remove the washer behind that. Then the bar will release from the deck. Now I can remove the belt from the guides around the deck drive pulley. Everything is released from the deck, and now it can slide out from under the machine. Preliminary inspection here. There are a few places with peeling paint. I see no rust through still. A preliminary blow off is definitely in order. How about this cup of goodies? I spent about 30 minutes unwrapping from the spindles on this deck. Just add water and boil. Is this 8-track or open reel tape here in this stuff? Nutraloaf flavor. The nut on these blades are 1 inch. I'm going to use an impact wrench to remove these bolts. However, I never use an impact wrench to replace the blade bolts, mainly because I don't want to over tighten those bolts or deform them. I'm going to use this hand chisel here to get the baked on grass loose from the deck. Next, I'll use this wire brush to finish off. There are no rust through spots on this deck. Very little of the factory paint left though. It's good to take some spray paint like this Rust-Oleum and go over the entire underneath. That will help slow down the rust and corrosion. I keep a few cans of this in the Napa engine paint around, and I clean and respray underneath my decks, or if I see any surface rust coming up. It's more than a great idea to do a thorough cleaning of your lawnmower deck at least once a year. Caked on grass and debris will tend to have and hold moisture, and over time it'll eat through the metal on your deck. It will also stop up the drain holes on top of the deck. Personally, I clean underneath and blow off my machines quite often during the season. That goes a long way in the life of your lawnmowers, any kind, any brand. Clean the spindle and the threads with a fiber sponge. I'm going to get any corrosion or dirt off of it. That way you have a smooth reinstall. These spindles are expensive if you have to replace them, so no cross-threading or funny business if you can avoid it. The blades are in great shape, so I'm going to sharpen these up with a wise $14 I spent on this Harbor Freight Warrior angle grinder. This is a lot easier than using a bench grinder. Okay, my blades and hardware are ready to go back. Your sharpened side of your blade will be facing toward the deck. Reinstall the washer and the nut with a 1-inch socket. Hey, that looks pretty good for a quick cleanup. And saving those blades were a plus. That saves a lot of money also. The deck is in great shape for the age of the tractor, certainly. No rust through, and hopefully I can keep it that way. I'll show some before and after shots here of the underneath. Now let's look at the top side and see if we can find any issues and do the maintenance on that. The first thing I'm going to do is remove these shrouds, which love to build up and hold all kinds of debris and surprises. A 10mm socket will remove those bolts. The edge cutting system. Cutting edge. Yep. A 5/8 socket will take off the pulleys on this deck. You'll want to inspect those for any slop or outer wear. Replacements are available for these on John Deere's website. This idler pulley is being abnormally hard to get off. Well, finally I got it to break loose. Feels like there's some corrosion or debris in those threads on this mounting shaft. The nut may have been started funny a few times. Well, now that I got that nut off, the pulley wants to stay on anyway. I'm going to try some PB Blaster, see if I can get it to break loose from the shaft. Okay, time for some encouragement. I'm going to take a socket and see if I can break it loose. May have been some dried grease or corrosion on that shaft. The idler pulley seems okay. I don't see any damage to it. I'll clean these pulleys and all this hardware. That will make the install at least 30 to 50% easier. The belt path on these 42-inch decks are simple. I just think of it as a big T. This belt actually has some life left in it. This deck needs a good old-fashioned Dawn dishwashing liquid cleanup. I like Dawn because it's a good cleaner and it'll break up oil and grease pretty good. I think I have about 90% of the grime cleaned off this unit. I'm certainly not restoring this deck today. I'm merely reviving this deck today. Now down the road I may do more as needed, and I've said this before. I can spend days or a week cleaning and shining a lawnmower, or I can mow the grass. This is Rust-Oleum yellow spray paint. I just want to slow the rust down for now. Later I may sand some of these spots down and repaint them. What I'm doing with the spray paint will be a good cover up and will stop the rust area from growing. I think that looks pretty good, if I do say so myself. Under these spindle pulleys there are grease zerks. These lubricate the bearings, and I'm using a general all-purpose grease from Napa. Hook up your grease gun, give it maybe 4 to 6 pumps. Other lubrication points on this deck involve the moving mechanics like the brake blade pivots and the deck idler pivot point. This is a good representation from the owner's manual of the lubrication points. I'm using 3-in-1 oil in a can here for this. You mainly want to make sure nothing is in a bind and moving freely. All important in the operation of this deck. Cleaning up your hardware goes a long way in cutting down on wear and tear. When you clean the rust and corrosion off your nuts and bolts, it makes the hardware work better and reduces the risk of cross-threading the bolts on your mounting shafts. I've also cleaned those off. The belt pattern is like a big T. Get your belt around the blade pulleys like this. Now I will reinstall the idler pulley. I don't really crank down on these nuts, just get them good and tight. You can strip these mounting shafts out, then you'll be replacing parts. So kind of use your noggin on this one. The pulleys should spin freely if they are not worn out. Okay, next I'm going to install the pulley shrouds back on the deck with my nice clean bolts. These shrouds also act partially as a guide for these belts around the pulleys also. So make sure your belt's not in any kind of bind or off track anywhere in that shroud. I figured since I had the deck off, I'd take the opportunity to blow out the undercarriage with air and do a quick Dawn liquid mower wash on this unit. Reinstalling the deck is the reverse of taking it off. I'm going to get it slid back under the tractor and kind of line it up close. Now I will reinstall the belt on the mower drive pulley coming off the engine by making sure my belt falls within this belt guide on both sides of the pulley. I'm going to slide the front draft rod through the mounting hole on the deck. Then I can reinstall the washer. Then I'll reinsert the cotter pin back in the slot on the draft bar. Now I will reinstall the washer and cotter pin back on the rear draft arms. Then I'll reinstall the washer and cotter pin for the adjustable lift link. This is the same for both the left and right sides of the deck. Okay, now I can pull the bricks out from underneath the deck. Now I can reinstall the idler tension spring. And once I have that spring attached, I can slide the cable back into the mount like this. I want to show you this cable has a hole right here that this cotter pin will slip through. Mount the cable in the slot on the holder and install your cotter pin. Make sure the cable is secure and installed correctly. This deck looks great under there. Everything is clean and lubricated, the blade is sharp, and the drive belt is good. Everything is connected properly. Now I should be able to raise my deck back up. Beautiful. I can't stand the John Deere nanny-state sue me because you're too stupid to back a lawnmower up without running over your dog or toddler switch. First, I'll disconnect the connector cable from the switch by reaching up behind it and pulling it off. Then you can take a short piece of wire, paper clip, something that conducts, and bridge this connection. Tie the wire out of the way somewhere. I'm going to fix my wire permanently though, and I'm going to take it a step further and use the momentary switch that controls the so-called safety backup on this tractor to control a horn. This horn comes with a mounting bracket. I will strip the wires on that connector. I'm going to solder one side of this connector to run to my 12-volt power source. Then I will heat shrink that connection. The other side of my connector will run to my horn. I will solder and heat shrink that connection. And that will finish my connection to the momentary switch. Now I've added a connector to the end that will mount on a 12-volt power source coming off the battery. That was not included with this horn kit. My positive power source is coming to the switch, and when the switch is closed, the horn will sound. Then I'm going to run my ground to a good spot that I find on the tractor somewhere. For the positive side, I'm going to hook my 12 volts for the horn right here where the battery comes in on the positive side. This is an 11 millimeter wrench I'm using here. I will install this wire on the shaft there and tighten that bolt down. Then I can pull the boot back over this connection here. Now I can reinstall the wire connector back on the momentary switch. I bent this mounting bracket back in an L shape. What I'm going to do is slip it in between this panel and line up this hole in the mounting bracket with the hole in the screw coming through the outer panel. You see how I have my bracket hole aligned in behind that panel there. Now I can put this T25 hex screw back in, and that will hold my bracket in place and hold this panel. Now I'm going to remove the mounting nut and washer on the back of this horn. I will put the 12 millimeter nut back on the shaft and tighten that down. For the ground wire, I have a nut, bolt, and washer set up here. I found a hole I can just run my wire around the bolt and tighten it to the frame. Eventually, I will get a good electrical connector and make a good connection for this ground. Right now, I don't have any more ring terminals. My power lead wire here is a little long, so I'm going to tie that up out of the way and make all this wiring a little bit neater here. Okay, I've looked over everything to make sure I had all my wiring in place. The switch should now be a horn. Should certainly get the attention of coyotes. Well, this is the moment of truth, the culmination of all the stuff I've done to this tractor. I feel pretty confident that this John Deere La105 is going to be awesome. The mower's actually running great and the cut looks good. The grass I'm cutting here is actually about 5 inches tall, and it's powered right through it with no real bog downs or anything. I'm going to mow about another hour or so with it and see how it does. Well, I've been mowing the last few hours with this unit, and it does great. Once I burn that tank of fuel out with the Marvel mystery oil in it and put some regular 90 ethanol free octane fuel back in, it really woke up. What an amazing machine, and what a revival this has been. Wow is all I can say. $50. Not only did I get this mower for $50, it's in great shape for a 2009 unit. It has around 179 hours on the meter. Well, probably around 182 now. The only money I've spent on it so far is for the tune-up parts. A headlight bulb I already had. Some of the spray paint I had around here. I got some carb cleaner, Marvel mystery oil, some engine degreaser. I've used some Dawn dishwashing liquid. I didn't have to buy a battery or new blades. So there's nothing broken or no parts to buy. The seat and body of the tractor are clean. The hood is in excellent shape. This John Deere La105, I will have to say, is one of the best, or at least in the top 5 units I've ever gotten used. Certainly one of the best deals at $50. And that's maybe what I've spent on it so far. The only other thing I want to do is eventually replace that Nicky carburetor with that good old Briggs & Stratton that makes these engines sing and allows you to really get the power out of them. But that's around $120 on the expensive side. But considering what I have in this John Deere, I really don't mind getting that carburetor down the road when I have the money. What I've done so far, though, makes this machine ready to mow and work around the yard. I have cleaned and recharged the battery, put air in the tires, did a thorough air blowout. I did the tune-up and engine maintenance, purged the fuel tank and lines, adjusted the brakes, replaced a headlight bulb, lubed the steering, did a deck cleanup and lubrication, and I disabled the backup switch and installed a horn. I will leave the links to parts 1 and 2 of this John Deere La105 I got for $50 from a yard sale. I will have more videos coming soon. I appreciate you watching, and to all who take the time to give a thumbs up or down, and to all those who subscribe and contribute to keep the channel going. Please let me and others know about any experiences you have had with the John Deere La105 lawn tractor in the comments section. And until the next time, I'm Big Al Cox wishing you and yours many blessings from my shop to yours.